Thank you, Chairperson Poindexter, members of the County Council, Finance Committee. My name is Duane Kanuha. I'm the Planning Director for the Department of Planning. You have our numbers. I'll give you a brief overview of our department. We have 54 positions. 48 of them are county funded, 6 are funded by other grants, primarily a grant from the state of Hawaii through the Department of the Interior for Coastal Zone Management Administration. We have 10 staff in Kona, and the department itself serves 12 various boards and commissions. Within the department, we have 5 different divisions. We have the administrative permits section, which handles subdivisions, building permits, plan approvals, etc. We have the administrative services division, which handles payroll, personnel, HR issues. Then we have the long range division, which is primarily responsible for the long-range planning efforts, primarily the community development plans, coordinating what long-range planning efforts between our county and the state of Hawaii. Then we have the planning division, which primarily coordinates all of the activities for the 2 planning commissions, the Leeward Planning Commission and the Windward Planning Commission, and the Board of Appeals, actually. And then we have the West Hawaii office. I think what I'll try and do is I'll jump straight into where I think the questions will come from, and that is we have in this proposed budget an amount for $100,000 for the community development plan program, and another $495,000 for the general plan comprehensive revision program. Stepping back a little bit, both programs are mandatory. The general plan, as you know, flows from the county charter, goes into the county code. The community development plan program that was inserted into the county charter following adoption of 4 community development plans in 2008. The last general plan revision comprehensive review program, which was approved, was in 2005. I started working in the planning department in 1975, and at that time I was involved in the first internal review of the general plan, which was adopted in 1971. I was also involved in the actual first comprehensive review of the general plan, which was adopted in 1989. So I've been through the process. And I can tell you back then, the main expenses to do the comprehensive review for the general plan, the main cost for that was pizza and overtime, because it was mostly done in-house. There was very little budget. The program was at a stage where we could handle it that way. Okay. Fast forward to where we are now, and primarily with, well, let me back up a little bit. The whole general plan process is essentially 3 layers. Okay. The general plan itself is a policy planning document, and it's implemented through a secondary layer of what we call community development plans, area improvement plans, things of that nature. And then it's implemented at the bottom by zoning codes, subdivision codes, and the county CIP process. So that's the structure, these three layers. Policy planning on top, mid-level community development plan efforts, area improvement plans, subdivision zoning codes, and CIP. So what we have now is a pretty good foundation of that mid-level component with adoption of these 4 CDPs. We're in the process of finalizing 2 more, one for Ka'u and the other one for Hamakua. And we are taking a look at revisiting some kind of an effort for South Hilo. That being said, each of these CDPs, when they were enacted, have each one of them has action committees comprised of 9 members appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the council. Currently, to support those action committees, which is another role that our department provides, for just those 4 community development plan action committees right now, is running me about $30,000 a month, or maybe $300 something a year. And that's coming out of just out of our budget. Okay. And what that involves is our professional planners basically doing agendas, attending meetings, taking minutes, doing notices, those kinds of efforts. So what this $100,000 budget item here is for us to contract a series of what we call community planning assistants. And basically what those folks would do would take these, what we almost view as clerical duties, away from my professional staff. So the allocation is roughly around $25,000 per CDP action committee. Fortunately, or unfortunately, there hasn't been a really significant level of development activity occurring over the years. If there were, or development activity starts ramping up, then it would be very, very difficult to both service these action committees and do all of the planning implementation work that we have to do at the same time. So it's kind of a proactive effort, which is also to coincide with the mandatory general plan comprehensive review. Okay. Should note that the community development plans also require, actually they don't require, but there is there's provisions in the statute to review those CDPs within 10 years. So we're actually in that range, if they're adopted in 2008, we're getting pretty close to 6 or 7 years out. I think what we've learned from what's happened with the adoption of these 4 CDPs right now is that, in my opinion, there wasn't a real clear linkage between how they would be implemented as CDPs under the general plan. And from that standpoint, they were actually all implemented and done in 4 different ways. It wasn't a real unified approach in how each one of these CDPs was done. They were done by 4 different consultants. it was actually the first effort by a lot of the staff in coordinating these things and putting them together. So I think it's opportune that now we have to do the comprehensive review, which is mandated by statute. That, in my mind, it provides an opportunity to take a look at both the general plan and the community development plans in sync. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. If you take the general plan document right now and strip out all of the specific community components of it and allocate them into the community development plans that are there right now, the document goes from X pages down to this much. So I think basically what I'm looking at is to not go revisit the general plan as a document itself, but in the context of now a lot of the more specific planning efforts have been delegated to this mid-level layer. So, but nevertheless, I'm looking at it in terms of a comprehensive review of the general plan and the whole structure that it throws under. So, and primarily on that effort, we're looking at a GIS-based system. We have a system in place right now that we use. It's got a lot of data on it. It's used in different ways. We network with the state GIS system on their efforts. And this effort that we'll undertake for this comprehensive general plan is there's a couple of foundational components that I think we need to get more effort on. Once we get those, we believe the future general plan reviews and future community development plan reviews can be a lot more seamless and a lot less complicated than it is now. Basically through the technology that's available. So in a nutshell, that's my overview. And again, I know those are two components that I thought I'd lay on the table for you in terms of how we're going to approach it for the coming years.
Thank you. Councilmember Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director, for the presentation. Pretty straightforward budget. Absolutely support the funding for the general plan review. Absolutely, and as well as the CDP. I know that's been a burden. It's challenging. So I think that's a good approach to that. Also happy to see a slight increase in the mileage and auto allowance, because I know that's draining with all the commissions and whatnot that you folks service. I know it's Manini, but I know it'll go a long way, so I support that. One of the questions that I have is the planning OCE and travel conferences is significantly lower this year than last year. Is that still going to be enough to meet the needs of your staff in that area?
Yes.
It will be? Okay. Support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wood.
Yes. Right, I was looking at the code enforcement officers, and right now, I think you lost 2. You filled 1 in, and there's still 1 you are in the process of hiring, or?
The inspectors, it's been filled.
It's filled, so both of them have been filled in?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and just my concern, we're sort of a complaint-driven county, and I know, at least in my districts, some of the complaints have been where they call, and it's sort of, well, the one time the inspector comes out, and okay, the violation isn't going on right at that very moment, and how to oversee that, and maybe with replenishing the numbers, that won't be quite such a problem. But it is hard for people where they feel there is a zoning violation, and it's they take pictures and they report it and they complain, and then it's, oh, well, when our inspector went by, no, those industrial trucks weren't there or something, you know, whatever. And so I just wanna highlight that issue, and I'm not quite sure how to solve it, although I feel pictures and things are evidence. You don't necessarily should need the planning department's inspector. In terms of your relationship with the National Park Service, that's sort of been, I think you have an agreement with the National Park Service to work with them?
No, oh, well, actually, we have a memorandum of understanding
Yeah,
for
okay.
coordination
That's-
between our department, the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, the Na'alahele program, and then the National Park Service for their Alakahakai program. Yeah.
So I'm just looking at, like with the Kohala Kai, where I felt there was a problem where the communication with that group, and I think some of the public felt, well, why isn't the, National Park Service writing complaints or coming here to us, but my understanding is that really they're supposed to be working through you, that there's a cooperative relationship between them and you under that memorandum of understanding.
That's
So,
correct, yeah.
Anyway, I just expressed that concern after dealing with the Kohala Kai, and hopefully we've got that one nailed down now,
Point of order, based on time, we should be really specific on budget and other
Okay.
numbers and not
Okay.
other issues related to planning.
I don't agree, but I will go on. Okay, in terms of, the general plan or the CDP, oh, I appreciate what you're saying and working on this comprehensively. I was on the South Kohala Plan, steering committee, and all along, I was, one of my concerns then was really the relationship between the CDP and the zoning code and the other codes, and I was sort of encouraging Chris, former director, that these things need to be tied, would be, from a due process point of view, and just general understanding should be better tied. So, in terms of the comprehensive view, I do think it would help to have, also the general plan, the CDPs, the zoning code, and, better, clarity. I do sometimes feel that you all could spend less money dealing with the CDPs if there wasn't quite such this controlling hand, in the terms of the CDPs. Or I look at North Kohala, it's just been really angry, like, why is it everything is, I'll take it back to the director, you're only here for discretion, and no, I didn't get it this month, it's gonna take another month to get an answer, well, I got an answer, but we gotta go back, discuss it with Corporation Council, this sort of, just a sense that, we're just here at the whim and discretion of the planning director, and we'll listen or we won't listen, and, I know you're just new, but to the extent that would be a sense of just that, respect and contributing to that, I think would help. I do wanna, last thing is just, in terms of the fair share and violations and collections, I'm not gonna get into detail, but I have been concerned, and I am aware of where, the violations have been found and large amounts have been requested to be paid, and then next thing you know, and this isn't under you, the attorney goes in and chit chats and they come out hardly owing anything. So I feel that, that tightening up in terms of that enforcement. I will add that you have got a great staff and they're always there and very helpful, and, but I just want to take this opportunity to pinpoint some of my concerns rather than sit here and tell you all the ways you are doing great. So thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilmember Yeo?
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for the money and the time you're investing in the implementation of the CDPs. Because I think there's been some misunderstandings and some fears towards that end. And the presentation that I did see at the Kona CDP Action Committee was really impressive. The suggestions for amending the zoning code and the subdivision code in order to better implement the CDPs. I think that was a great leap forward, and I'm anxious to see how all of that works out, but I'm glad we have money in the budget to continue on that effort. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Iliga?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Director. How you doing?
Morning, good morning.
Actually, I
Good
take that
afternoon.
back. Good afternoon now. We talk too much, that's what it is. I just want to say, also, I support your funding for the general plan, and thank you for your efforts for the community development plans. You've been very great at responding to my concerns when I have them. I have a few questions, more like clarifications. I noticed that looking at your FY 2014 and 15, it looks like the Arborist Advisory Committee meetings, the Board of Appeals meetings, the Planning Commission meetings, and the KBDC meetings are all 0. And I'm just wondering why that is. 196. I don't know if I'm really looking at the right book. For fiscal year 2014 and 15. I'm looking at this.
It's supposed to be,
it
I have it
says-
at 19.3.
It says 0 here. Take a look at this. I just want to know. I want to know if I'm reading it correctly or. It says estimate. I'm not sure.
Madam Chair, I believe that they took and zeroed out and then they lumped them together underneath there on another line.
Oh, that's what they did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you lumped it
Okay.
all?
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Okay, my next question, why is boards, commission, committee meetings that high? So that's what I was gonna ask next, and so that's what happened.
Yeah.
You guys lumped it all into one. Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's, for me, I could not figure out how you got 156, and now, so you put it all into one. I do have a question regarding the Arborist Advisory Committee meetings. Are those meetings, are they going on? Do we have enough?
The Arborist Advisory Council,
Yes,
it's a 5-member council with 4 vacancies.
okay.
I couldn't hear you.
And the reason there's 4 vacancies is that the specific qualifications to serve on that arborist council are so precise that there's just no qualified people.
Wow. I do have a question about the SMA minor permits. It looks like in fiscal year 2012-13, the actual was 70, and then you budgeted last year for 75, and now you're estimating 50, and I'm just curious why the drop?
For SMA minor permits,
Yes. think somebody has to answer.
That estimate is based on, actually, the amount of, activity related to minor permits, over the years. And, like I indicated earlier, the indicators for what's happening out there are, not clear. I mean, it's not as if we're in a stagnant economy, nor is it, really robust. The estimate minor permit process is actually one component of the whole SMA, which is the special management area process there. And it's actually three components. When you come in, the special management area is an area that's been designated, by maps, by rules. And if you're doing an activity in that area, you're either subject, well, first you're subject to an assessment as to whether or not, you actually need the permit. If you
Oh,
do,
okay.
then it's a,
I got
Yeah,
you,
it's
so
a-
it's a,
Correct.
kinda like trying to figure out if I should go forward,
correct.
so.
And if you go
that's-
forward, whether your permit is significant enough that it can be administratively issued or significantly enough that it requires the planning commission to hear.
My final question regards with, it looks like, for building permits, you feel that the estimate is 3,875, and last year was lower. What's the formula of getting that number? How did you guys come up to such a higher number than it was before?
Previous years. It's just based on the workflow that we track, monthly. What we're seeing is that there's an increase in subdivision activity, and there's an increase in building permit activity. The building permit activity is primarily attributed, we think, to people being able, to come in with being able to finance homes, et cetera, on existing subdivisions. And in turn, we see a little more activity in new subdivisions, coming across. Not necessarily subdivisions that will be created because of rezoning. There hasn't been a whole
So within-
lot of rezoning going on. So it's subdivisions of existing areas that already have the zoning where they can just go in and
So
subdivide.
they're just amending kind of thing?
Correct, yeah.
So within that question, how are you accommodating this increase of permits that's coming up? Because you still have the same workforce. What's your steps in trying to deal with that?
Well, my people are so good, they just work harder.
You just work hard. Well, I'm just saying, this is a fantasy world. I mean, we're talking about the budget right now, and I just wanted to get your opinion. What would you do to help with that process if there was unlimited funds? What would the step be to accommodate this increase? Let's say the building permits start just going up and up and up, and your personnel just can't work harder. What do you need to do after that?
Well, my thoughts are related to something that the mayor and I have had a lot of discussions on, and that is how to get more efficient in the whole permitting process. There's issues we're aware of at the front end, and there's also issues that we're aware of at the back end. It's a combination of our part of the permitting process as well as those of Public Works. Public Works has been working on a system, you know, to streamline that component for a number of years. I think they've made a lot of progress, but the system itself is still subject to what you put into it. So if somebody comes up to me at a party and says, you know, I submitted a permit and it's, you know, been there forever and it's taken me X amount of months. My next question is, well, how many times did you submit that permit? And if they tell me, oh, this is the 4th time, you know, then that's where it is. I mean, if you get it right the first time, then the system works. Okay? Then on the end, I mean, the final inspections for things to move forward and things like that. A lot of times there's discrepancies in terms of what you need in order to pass final. And sometimes you need this, sometimes you need that, the numbers change. You know, people are waiting for final for X number of years. So that's what I meant, there's issues on the end.
Well, I like your answer because you didn't go to the default, oh, we need to hire more staff. You mentioned that you need to reassess the system and see what, how to make it more efficient. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because your program, that's what I'm hearing a lot. And I need to do my part into actually educate myself on the process because I also want to be involved and try to make that more efficient. Just I don't know enough to be able to make a recommendation. So thank you for all the work that you do and have a good, wonderful lunch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Ford?
Director Kanuha, as you know, I recently got trained on cluster development by your staff.
That's good.
And it was interesting to go into a meeting with the code in my hand, thinking I was getting trained on that, and told that that thing was worthless. What plans do you have to rewrite that section of the code? We're using your professionals who know what they're doing rather than, as you know, I was gonna do it and realized I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So what are your plans for that section of the code to be revised appropriately so it's functional?
You know, I think in that
It's
discussion,
cluster development, which is in the zoning
Zoning
code,
code.
25,
Yeah.
chapter 25.
there's a provision in zoning code which allows cluster development, and it's real specific to residential zoning. And I think what Councilman Ford was trying to do was trying to address the associated issue of PUDs, which is, you know, it's a form of clustering, but it's a wider open version of clustering. And the genesis of that meeting was as it related, I thought to at the beginning, to the Kona CDP, which talked about a clustering, agricultural cluster component.
A different issue.
Different issue, yeah, outside of the urban area. I think, that's.
Yeah, I believe, from my experience going in and saying, I'm looking at this, I want to revise it, and finding out, one, it was not the appropriate. First of all, I didn't know anything. I knew that, I figured that one out on my own. But it needs to be revised so it can be used. I don't want to take a lot of time up here. I just want to know, what are your plans with your professionals who know what they're doing to revise that section and bring it to the council?
I think, in my opinion, a blend of the cluster and the PUD. In other words, merging them together, tightening up the PUD and how it works would probably be, that's my thought process.
Okay, but you don't have any plans to have that section of the code rewritten by the professionals in planning that you've got?
We made, as I indicated, the whole general plan comprehensive review is top to bottom.
Okay.
So that would fall under the radar of that.
Alright. The other thing was, about 4 years ago, and before you, we were told, the council was told, that chapter 23 and 25 were going to be rewritten, improved, I don't know about more comprehensive, but certainly not in conflict with each other. As you know, I keep finding these things that the logic seems to be out there. It never happened. And do you have any plans to have your staff look at those chapters and resolve conflicts or rewrite those chapters?
Well, I think it's actually started happening now with some of the things we've been doing in response to some of the issues related to the Kona CDP. Some of the big issues there are that the conflict being the CDP being adopted by ordinance, the codes adopted by ordinance, and they don't necessarily line up.
Right.
So what do you do there? Okay. And because the CDP is part of the implementation process that encompasses more than just the specific codes, I think we've actually, in my mind, started that alignment process, because we're not going to be able to, it doesn't make sense to me to go align the zoning code to match up with issue that relates to the Kona CDP, or align the same section of the zoning code
For
to
somebody
just an
else's.
issue for Ka'u.
Right.
Yeah, so I think by default, that's where all of that, the efforts have started to get that to align a lot better.
All right. One of the things that has concerned me for years is the fact that I don't think the fees for doing a subdivision or doing rezoning are even close to reality, based on the amount of labor your staff must put into those things. Would you comment on that?
I agree, and actually, we just got some information about the city and county of Honolulu recently raised their fees, their processing fees for the things that we do, so that's going to give me at least a benchmark to move forward with that.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing something come forward from your staff, and from you, of course, on that issue. The other thing that I'm really concerned about, and I mentioned this to you in a meeting, is that we have what I am calling economic caste system, CASTE. Because our zoning code creates zones that are, I'm using this as an example, 15,000 square foot lots, this is especially true in residential, or 10,000, or 7,500, or 20,000. The only people that can live in that subdivision are people who can afford to either buy the lot and build a house, or buy a house lot combination together. So it's, everybody's very, what's the word I want to use? I don't know what the word is I want to use, but it's, we're defining our areas by economics instead of as a village concept, which the CDP, Kona CDP, is encouraging, especially around the TODs, the TNDs. And I've been thinking that, and I've mentioned this, that we need a zoning code that allows us to have multiple size lots in the rezoning, so that not every lot has to be 20,000 or 75 or whatever, that it can be a mixed group of residential lots in an area. I don't know if that is reasonable from your perspective. It is from mine, of course, but I don't know if you and your staff think that that is something that we need to do, because when I look at those TODs and TNDs, that's exactly what they're supposed to be, but our zoning code doesn't allow it.
There's a provision in there for project districts, which allow that kind of a mix, but that's for entitlements going forward. I
Yes.
think what you're talking about
Yes.
is existing
Yeah.
zoned areas.
Yeah, I'd like
that are segmented by, 10,000,
Economics.
15, yeah.
Yeah. Are you interested in having a multi-size lot zoning code section so that people could say, instead of every lot being 15,000 or 20,000, that I can build an assortment of housing that fits different economic criteria? Or are we gonna just stay where we are with the caste system?
Well, you know, I've been in this profession for a long time, and that's one of the concepts that I've always wondered about. You know, because a lot of how we end up with our land use codes, et cetera, you know, all flow from, you know, the mainland, where, you know, we have different topography, and it's, you know, it's the time to think outside the box in terms of
Okay.
what it makes.
So at
That's
least you're
my
thinking
opinion.
about it. Okay, I'm gonna yield.
No other questions or discussions, thank you so much.
And, you know, I'm always available
Yes.
for, you know, any clarifications.
Okay, so, council members, it's now, 12:50, so, I wanted to reconvene at 1:45. And I already notified, I think we already notified Department of Liquor Control that we are going to begin at 1:45, so, this meeting is now in recess.